Morning, everybody. How you doing? It's Saturday, the 1st of March, and if you saw the discussion, the flare up, I don't know how to describe it. I really don't. So Rodney called me yesterday because I was traveling down here in Florida. Yeah, I know, right? I try to stay away from Florida because of its laws, but family's down here, so I can't really do that. And he asked me if I saw the presser between Zelensky himself, between Trump, Zelensky, and Vance, and I didn't. So I caught it last night once I landed, got settled, and it was just embarrassing on a number of levels. But we'll get into that later. This week we saw a farewell by Joy Reid. We saw Lester Holt step down as well. Rashi said so eloquently that black media was under attack. It always is, so that's nothing new. In general, though, we saw a continuance of the same old, same old. More executive orders, more legal battles that refuted the executive orders. And let's remember something, right? An executive order is not a law. Laws are only passed through Congress. An executive order is a directive from the executive, the president, to which or the way they want the administration, those who work for the president, to behave. Congress does not work for the president. Congress is supposed to be representative of and for the people. So let's be clear about that. Again, we'll dig into that a little bit later. One of the things that I've been saying, I echoed this on Thomas's show earlier today in the chat that we were having. Echoed it to Thomas earlier in the week. Black unity starts with saying hello. Last night, got off the plane. There was a sister. She was struggling. She was by herself, and she had a whole lot of stuff. She had a whole lot of stuff. She took a carry on versus bringing. I'm sorry. She took her personal bag versus a carry on or any other luggage, and she really packed that personal bag. So I offered to help her, which I did. And we're walking and we're just chatting it up. And she was coming to Florida to support her sister. I'm here to spend some time with my brother and the kids and so on and so forth. But she was saying how she wasn't able to make the last couple of events her sister had because she had to work. And this one she was just not going to allow that to happen again. She missed too many of them. So she was like, not going to do it. I'll make it work. And she made it work. Long story short, there was nothing to that. All I did was help her. I didn't want nothing, wasn't looking for nothing. We didn't have a conversation about personal stuff so much, just where do you live? Where do you live? She asked me where I worked. I don't like to answer that. I'm sorry, she asked me what I did. I don't like to answer that question. I don't know if I don't know if it's about um, being humble, but what I do for work is it doesn't define me as a person. So I much rather stick with the things that um, I find define me as a person. I remember some years ago. I don't know if I've ever shared this on the show, and maybe I did, and probably was a good while ago. I remember some years ago. Um, I was doing a poetry event, and one of my fellow poets, we were having a similar conversation, and his response to that question when asked was, "I'm a poet." But he was a teacher by profession, and I was like, "Well, damn, I thought you were a teacher." He was like, "Well, I am, but that's what I do to pay the bills. That's not who I am." So when people ask me, "What do I do?" and I tell them I tell them I'm a poet. But that's a good way of looking at that. I can dig into that. I can make that one breathe. It makes sense to me. I remember the other side of life though, doing the Joe Man's Black Wall Street events, and Donnie on me constantly about, yo, you shouldn't do that, because you never know who you may be networking with. So you shouldn't shut down any opportunities in order to network. I'm just like, well, I feel you, but again, I'm one whom I dig on being, I guess, humble. I guess that's the best way of saying it or describing it. But nonetheless, I didn't answer the question. I avoided it. She told me what she did. It's cool. I mean, that doesn't bother me if you want to share. But I think that we we can connect on different levels other than what we do. Because see, to me, when you ask a person what they do, you're sizing them up to try to see how relevant of a space they may occupy in your life. And I'm just not that dude. I mean, I don't care what you do, as long as you can take care of yourself, then it doesn't matter to me. I guess that's why I look at it the way I look at it, and the way I play it the way I play it, because it doesn't matter to me. I have to get out of that space though. On a number of things, I'm told I have to get out of that space because, I'm definitely one who truly believes and prescribes to the philosophy of treat others the way you want to be treated, or think of others the way that you want to be thought. And that doesn't always resonate well with other people. Some people want you to step further, be more involved, engaged, whatever the heck you want to call it, than um, they put out. And I don't know. I guess I'll do better with that as the days, the months, the years go on. God willing that I'm given more days, months, and years. Another thing, side note, I'm looking at myself in the screen. Again, this is still new to us, right? This is our fourth show. Yeah, fourth show. So this is one of those things where um, still trying to figure out some stuff. And I want to get a camera for my laptop because I don't think my laptop gives the greatest picture. I'll get some feedback from some folks later on, but it doesn't look that great to me. Or it could be my damn eyes. I did go I did go get the contacts, and again, one of them was damaged. I was hoping they were going to call me to fix that up, but that hasn't happened yet. So hopefully this week I'll get some good news on that. Speaking of this week, I'm finally able to get an appointment with the VA. Now, that does bleed into the show a bit because that speaks directly to the cuts that Doge is making, the cuts that the administration is proposing. Now, though they're saying that they're not going to cut critical jobs, skills, tasks within the VA. I asked for this appointment over a month ago, and the first available was the 6th of March. What if something was really wrong with me? What if I really needed to be seen? Could I have gone to the emergency room? Absolutely. But does that not run up the cost of the service when people use the emergency room versus using their primary care physician? Look, I'm a man. I don't even know about that stuff, to be honest with you. I hear that word thrown around a lot. It's like, look, if I ain't dying, I ain't going. But in the VA system, you have to go at least 1 year in order for them to keep you in the system. If not, then you have to do all of this all over again. If I were to wait a year and a day, honestly, you're booted out of the system. You have to come back in like you were new to the system. They would then assign you a primary care physician. You would have to wait in order to be seen by that primary care physician, and that could take forever. Versus you going every year and you knowing that, like for me, next year March, I know I'll have another appointment. If I waited a day or so, a week or so beyond that year, and I tried to come back in March, I may have to wait till May, June of 2026 to be seen again. That's just how it works. This is one of those things. But anyhow, um, so I'm happy about that. I am never happy to see people lose their job. I had a phone call this morning from my sister. She was concerned about the potential of her losing her job, and she was trying to work it out mentally, financially, and emotionally. Is it worth her staying and keeping that good government job, or is it worth her moving on to something that's more stable, that's less stressful, that will give her an opportunity to make the money that she needs to make, continue to give her the opportunity to stay at home because she's digging the fact that she's been able to work from home. This telework stuff, man, is huge for people. It's been extremely empowering to people. Think about it. You save money potentially by paying people less because they don't have to commute. So, when folks take a job, I know I do, I factor in my commuting expense. I factor in my the ability for me to eat. Be, I'm going to eat. I'm a fat boy. I'm going to eat. But I'm talking about, do I have to spend money there? Or can I brown bag it, box lunch it, whatever the heck you want to class it to call it? I factor all those into my compensation, and if it doesn't work, then it does not work. And one of the things that she was saying was she was looking at jobs they may have been paying less, but they gave her an opportunity to stay home, where her government job may require her to come back into the office, which would require her to spend more money out of pocket in order to maintain her car and her household. So when you look at it, though the other jobs may have been paying less, she would actually come out better because she would be able to work remote still. I don't know if people are looking at this situation and the real life and real world consequences that these decisions are having on people, how it's truly impacting your everyday Joe or Jane who are trying to make decisions, not just for the now, because let's be real, right? If things hold as they should, if things hold as they should, we only have 3 more years or so with the current president and the current administration. So that's a short term thing. You're having people make, especially younger folks. My son works for the federal government, and he's having to think about this situation. Rodney has shared about his son, and he's having to think about, these are young folks whom are on track to do some great things for their lives, in their lives, with the federal government being a base for their career, that are having to make very tough decisions and choices based off a short span of time, because again, we're looking at another 3 years or so with the current administration. But that short span of time can off track their life goals, their potential, and or their uh, families' goals and potentials. Real talk, because it is that impactful. What if they jump out now, right? So if they bungee now and want to come back in a couple of years from now, will they be able to? Is there something that will be held against them because they left now? Will there be a huge influx of people trying to get in, which is going to push them to the bottom of the list? Will they be caught up in the middle somehow? We don't know. We've never seen anything like this. So that being said, people say all the time, well, we've been here before, we'll be okay. How, when, where, and were you there? Seriously, were you there? That's the other side of that I don't get when people say stuff like that. Well, we've been here before. No, I don't ever remember anything like this. Now, I'm not the oldest person in the world, 50, right? But I got 50 years under my belt, and I don't remember anything ever being like this in my lifetime. I don't remember anything even remotely being like this in my lifetime. As I said last week, when you're going at a situation like this and you're not being surgical, you're not being methodical, you're just going at it, and it's seemingly um, throwing around a hatchet. You're just cutting, cutting, cutting anything you see, any place you see it. That is very dangerous. This is a delicate system. It's a delicate network of things, and if it's not respected as such, it can have long term ramifications. Again, this will be a huge case study. This is something that folks will talk about 20, 30 years from now. Remember when? And it's a huge test to our system to see just how resilient it actually is. Really so. Speaking of resilience, Ronnie and I were talking about that last night about the strains of diseases and things that are coming back onto the world scene. And think about this, we have a vaccine denier who is now the chief person in charge of the American healthcare system. Will you see vaccinations being pushed forward, or will you see them being an option? And if they're an option, how many people do we lose this go around because the administration doesn't have a clue or isn't vested in making sure that we get in front of situations that may save people, that we acknowledge situations, disease outbreak that are killing people in the scores of thousands, the scores potentially of millions. You know, don't know. We really don't know. We really don't know until we cross that bridge. And that's a very sad position for us to be in as a nation. But it doesn't look like it's going to get any better. There's a belief in Washington that the current administration has a mandate from the masses. I understand. They won the election. That does not necessarily mean that that's a mandate, but they did win the election. And because of that, as you saw with the not the CR or appropriations bill, but the House passed the legislation forward that the administration wants, which included tax cuts. It also included spending cuts, and they're looking at 2 billion to cut, 4 billion not to bring in. Now, again, I don't understand who does that kind of math, but if you're saving 2 billion, but you're not taking in 4+ billion, that's a deficit because you only saved 2 billion. So you have 2 billion to we can play around with that a little bit, but you're saying you're not going to take in 4 point, I can't remember the exact number, billion as well. So it's like that doesn't add up. But this is again what we have to deal with now. The question really is, and we've been saying this for a minute, what are the midterms going to look like? Are people going to really show up and show their disgust or their unalignment with the current push that the administration is making? Will it be too late at that point? What can folk do now to let their representatives, independent, Republican, Democratic, doesn't matter, know that they are not happy with what they're seeing? Or are we happy? Are we, in fact, extremely giddy and like, hey, this is what we all wanted. This is what America needs. And we are looking forward to the next page turn. Now, again, I started with we're not even 60 days in yet. And this is where we are. We're not even 60 days in yet, and this is where we are. What happens on day 100? That's the marker for most presidents. That's when they lay down what they want to have happen during their administration. This is when they present their case to the American people. I believe it's Tuesday coming that the president is going to make an address to Congress. It's not the State of the Union, it's just making it address. I'm sorry, y'all, my nose was itching. Address to Congress about the path that he wants to take us down. And is that what we want? Does that move the needle for people to engage? Does that move the conversation down the line where folk are now engaged more, join hands more, join arms more, and say, this is not what we want? or this is what we want again, because this is how the nation voted, and the elections have consequences, and we are seeing the consequence of this previous election, and we really need to put that together in our heads and say, next time around, we are going to do this or we are going to do that. Whatever that or this is, we're either going to push further in the direction that the current administration wants us to go because it's what we need, or we're going to push harder and further in the opposite direction to either bring us back to center, because I don't think that the country is really, I won't say far right nor left. I won't say that. I don't think the country is more right nor more left. I think the country is still more centered and centric. You know, whatever the reasons, sexism, classism, racism, whatever the reasons, the country voted this way this go around. I think it was a knee jerk reaction to what was going on and what has been going on for a while. I do not dismiss the great work, and I got to give the players the credit that they deserve. The great work that the Republicans, Trump and his team did on mobilizing folks who felt disenfranchised, who felt left out, who were tired of the rhetoric that surrounded the HB. I'm sorry, HB. Listen to me. The LGBTQI plus community. They were tired of the rhetoric that surrounded immigrants, immigration. They were tired of the red. I do not discredit them for pushing those things forward because it got them over the finish line. And this is a race. This is a race. But this is not a business. This is a country and diplomacy. And we need folks who understand, at least to a nth of a degree, what politics, diplomacy look like and should look like. And if you watch the meltdown in the Oval um, on Friday, last night, that was not diplomatic. That was not diplomacy. That was guys yelling at one another like they were on a street corner. That should not have been ever put out in public. Someone needed to be the adult in the room, and there was no one whom took that position during that time. And that's why we got what we got live on television just yesterday. And that was horrible. That was truly horrible. That was truly um heart wrenching. It was a gut punch. It displayed the lack of control. It displayed the lack of understanding that we are living with, under, and with this current administration. And again, that was just, it wasn't a good look. There's no way to put lipstick on that pig, but to put lipstick on that pig, but it's still a pig. It just wasn't a good look. Morning, brother Barry. How you doing?
I'm doing good, man. Yourself?
I'm well, thank you, sir. Thank you, thank you. Rodney's in. He ain't got the taco meat on this morning, but he's in. He's up and in. Um,
Can I push back for a second, brother?
yeah, absolutely. Go ahead.
Trump them didn't win this race, and we gotta stop we gotta stop legitimizing what happened with them. And we gotta call it what it is. He didn't win. They stole it.
Mm,
And the more that we take this sports analogy, we treat everything like it's the Patriots and Tom Brady.
mm,
Who cares you got the Super Bowl? Did you cheat to get it? See, because when it's Barry Bonds, we got to put an asterisk next to his name. If this was Barack Obama, you would have to put an asterisk next to it. If Kamala Harris won and you found out she cheated, you would have to put an asterisk next to her name. So why are we not taking that same type of pattern with Trump? Because he's delegitimized everyone else. This started with him delegitimizing whether Barack Obama was even American. He said that he was a Kenyan. And so when I hear us legitimize them and give them credit, and to hear them never give us credit, I'm trying to figure out why do we do it. And I blame MSNBC, CNN, and Fox because he is a media creation. They legitimized his illegitimate conversation. And not only did they legitimize him, but no one ever asked the question. So you didn't like Obama because he was from Africa. What about Elon Musk? Where's he from?
He's from Africa.
So what you're saying is you didn't like him because he was a black African? You like white Africans. And so to me, I just feel like no, the proof is coming out day by day that they stole the election. And if we don't have this conversation, then we won't be able to prevent them from stealing another election. They'll just steal the next one, similar to how Bush stole the election. And we legitimized him and we stopped talking about it after a while. But we know Al Gore actually beat Donald Trump. But just like the Patriots, whether it was Spygate, Deflategate, whatever, you know, Brady can break that phone. The league can say burn those tapes. And the American public is treating Donald Trump much like Roger Goodell treated the Patriots. And that's that piece where we're not going to talk about what they did. Let's act like it never took place for the sake of saying we're saving our democracy, but we're destroying the democracy every day by not cleaning this stuff up.
So how are we in fact mm, trying to save the democracy when we clearly have someone in who cares nothing about our democracy? He cares nothing about our foreign affairs, clearly, because if he did, he would not have taken the position he did with President Zelensky just yesterday, and or at other points during the discussions about the end of the war in Ukraine. He would not be at the negotiating table. Him or his team would not be at the negotiating table without the presence of those whom are on both sides of the war. And lastly, I want to ask this question too because I've heard you speak on this before. Where are we getting the information that the election was stolen?
We got two different organizations who are doing data. We got people who have sued that are working with the NAACP, Operation Push. No, is Operation Push? Nan, I know for sure, and the Urban League. We have another gentleman who just published a report talking about Clark County, which is in Rodney's neck of the woods. And I've played a video on the rant last week or maybe 2 weeks ago. I'm showing uh, the data of what should have happened inside of Vegas compared to what did happen, and Starlink is a part of it. And so when we are talking about this stuff, because they're not talking about it on MSNBC and Fox and CNN. A part of this is their idea of if you tell the truth of what happens in this country, it's too fragile that will break the country. The reality is that the people need to know the God honest truth. And we need to start telling people that their democracy is under assault and that the vote is harming. And let's stop blaming people for not showing up. I know that's an easy way. That's the typical way of how we respond to these elections. But people showed up. A lot of folks were told that they were purged from the roll, over 3 million people. Let's talk about that. Let's talk about the people that casted their vote for Kamala and they vote because of Starlink reporting on these electronic voting machines manipulating the data, that their vote didn't count for the person they voted for in the presidential election, but down the ballot, it went for Democrats. Now, what they're saying is historically, they know that that data is incorrect because Democrats usually just vote down the ballot the same way. And so I think people should look at those videos. And Roland Martin has done a great story on it, as well as a few other folks. But so did my brother, dang it, I typically, Mark Lamont Hill. But I think that we should really look at black media who's
Don't
doing a great job talking about it. It's not in white media, and other black media outlets should get on board. They need to cover the story and don't run from it. Tell people the truth.
how do you hmm, how do you get that coverage out though when again there's very little ownership of media that we have. That's number one. And when you have voices that want to do the research, want to speak to power, they're being either eliminated or pushed forward as being disgruntled. You know, we saw Joy Reid lose her show this week. We saw Lester Holt say goodbye to his chairmanship of NBC News. And what does that look like moving forward for coverage from a different perspective, from voices that are not in the quote unquote mainstream, but are very necessary as we, as Rodney has pushed, start and continue the resistance to what we have going on right now under the current administration. What happens when the current administration is allowed to kick out AP, which they have? AP has sued them, but that suit for the moment has been shelved.
Hmm.
How do you get our voices out when voices that are presumed larger than ours, more in line with the norm as than ours, are being silenced as well? It's a rhetorical question. We really don't need to go into that because we have enough going on. But I really just wanted to put that out there on the record so we could twirl that around a little bit and think about it and have that conversation. Maybe not today, but at another time.
Hmm. Okay.
I really wanted to speak on Joy because I think that she got done a raw deal. Now, she had been moved around a couple of times as far as her slide is concerned. Her her imagery took a couple of hits. I'm sorry, I had to sneeze and I didn't want y'all to hear that because I'm loud with
No,
it. Her imagery took a couple of hits because they played with her look quite a bit, and I think the past couple of months she really had hit that stride where everything was really coming together for her. They finally settled on a look for her. She looked even more comfortable now. I think she was getting better guests. Again, I think that she was finally in that groove, and here it is. She's being replaced now. That doesn't mean a black face is not going to be in that slot, or they're losing the black face. What I'm understanding is they're moving the Michael Steele. Um, what's the sister name? Simone. Her, and I forget the third person that's on the show. They're
Alicia Mendez.
There you go. They're moving them to that slot. Thank you, Rodney. They're moving them to that slot. So I'm sorry, nose is killing me right now, y'all. It's so I don't think that is particularly it. But again, I think that she just got a raw deal all the way around. Uh, Rodney, I know you are huge with MSNBC support. What do you think about the loss of that sister and her voice?
It's bad timing, but it also goes to show the power of the maggots and Cheeto Mussolini. She was it was pressure, and it's what I tell the people at the gathering is that the power is in the people, and the maggots, they multiply pretty quick. For those of us who are true Americans, we have to push back just as quick and even beforehand. Uh, Without the support of the people, what happened happened. Now, I was not always a fan of Joy Reid, and to be quite honest, uh, a couple of years ago, I thought they should have taken off the aired in. But I will say, in the last year, for sure, she has come on pretty strong. But like when President Obama was on his way out, we saw a shuffle of people in news because you had a white guy in. You got Biden was not white, but he was pretty good for black people, to be quite honest. And he gets a bad rap, but he's gone. So the news move with the times. And Joy, it's not just Joy. Jonathan Capert lost his show. Jose Diaz Balart lost his weekend anchorship. Obviously, uh, Alex Wagner is a correspondent, a special correspondent. So there's quite this shakeup.
No,
But it's
she's taking Madoff's spot. She's taking Madoff's spot.
who's taking Matt out spot?
Alex Wagner. She's taking
No,
Madoff's spot. Yeah,
no.
Madoff's about to be reduced back to the one or whatever. They're wiping any of black and LGBTQ folks from the roles. She's taking her spot. They're going back to what Madoff was once before. Madoff just started. She just got her spot back during the election and during covering the 100 days of Trump. They're about to take her off too.
Yeah, but that was the original plan before this shakeup. Jane Patak, Jen Jen Saki is going to get more airtime. So most or a lot of the non-white people have either lost their show or lost their position. Like Jonathan Capehart is going to join Simone and Alicia
And
and
Mike
Michael
still.
Steele. Yeah, and they're going to add a couple of other people on that, and they're going to give it an extra hour. So it's a huge shakeup. But here's the thing about it: we're kind of arguing about eating at the lunch counter because
Crumbs at the lunch counter.
why well I'm not going to use the word why. We can create our own stuff and then you don't have to worry about that. Look what Roland Martin is doing with his own network, so to speak, that's digital. I believe Joy is she's on Substack and she gets a ton of readers and possibly some listeners. Just like we have this podcast, podcasting, even though we've been doing this for over a decade, but podcasting has come into its own now. And even though I say we still need to support MSNBC because we have to have somebody in that domain pushing back, we have opportunities in other domains that we need to exploit. And Joy is gone, but maybe she can join up with some of the DL Hughley. Your boy is out there doing his thing. So maybe there's opportunity for us to create something else other than what we have. So it may not be lost with Joy leaving MSNBC.
Look, DL was asked just the other day if he had any political aspirations. He gonna talk about I love pussy and liquor too much. That ain't gonna happen. You stupid dog. That dude is crazy.
Well, I mean, but he was terrible on the news, so I don't want to see him in politics. I will say this much, Phil Donahue lost his show in 2000, and he had the highest rated show on MSNBC. Anytime they make a change, MSNBC is probably the most fickle news organization out of all of them.
Wait a minute, who did you say lost this show, Brother Barry?
Phil Donahue. And I'm bringing Phil up because Phil was describing exactly what was happening, the angry white man. That was what a lot of his shows were about. And he had the #1 evening show on MSNBC. Show was so good. And the crazy part about it, because I used to watch him every night, that Phil, they pretty much erased all of the videos of Phil Donahue on MSNBC. But Phil was kicking butt. And he was talking about Trump. He was talking about angry white man voters. He was calling them out. He was talking about what was happening on a grassroots level every night, unapologetically. And then the lineup was Phil. It was Chris Matthews. Lawrence O'Donnell did
I
not get
miss Chris Matthews. Oh, I miss Chris.
Lawrence
We need
O'Donnell.
Hardball back.
Lawrence O'Donnell wasn't there yet, and I think it might have been John Abrams. So it might have went John Abrams, Chris Matthews, then Phil Donahue.
Brother Barry, are you sure you're not talking about the other guy that
Hmm.
No, Phil
sort of.
was actually on MSNBC.
Oh no, Phil was there. I brought this up on Rent Radio
Yeah,
10 years ago.
he was
They
on there.
canceled. He had the number one show.
2002 to like 2003, something like that. He was on there. Yeah.
It was 2000 because he was there during Bush, and he was talking about the angry white men. And there's a video where Phil says that Chris Matthews was the reason why he got canceled. But Phil Donahue had a great show, real great show. I bring that up to say it's just tough to you know, because you got to remember NBC has sold part of their news off. So Comcast no longer owns, quote unquote, MSNBC. They created a separate division, and that division is called, I forgot the name of the company, but they're expecting Elon Musk to buy that company. So that's another reason why you have a lot of the shakeup. There's a lot of other stuff that's taking place. And so, unfortunately, news is no longer independent. And I'll just end it by saying this is why what Howard Dean stated when, you know, what Howard Dean stated when he was running for president about breaking these corporations up and not allowing them to own the media. The American public has to push for independent media spaces, or we have to just start supporting those shows on YouTube. And here's another thing too. I said it was my last thing. Joe Rogan is no longer the number one podcast in the country. It's now a liberal podcast, independent journalists who are not kissing ass. And so that's where media has to go. Black media, especially, have to dig deeper, have to be able to create the headlines and find the stories like Roland Martin is doing. Good job to Roland. I wasn't the biggest fan of Roland until as of late, but I think Roland is doing a great job. And I believe that Joy and others, if they were smart, they would get on the trend and they would all build up under the same thing because that's where the time is leading us.
There's nothing wrong with joining the forces. Give me a second, you all. I want to go to the chat, and I apologize, Sister Nicole. She says Zelensky was the adult in the room. Yes, he was, and we will come back to that here shortly. Alan chimed in too. He said he suspects that Musk did tamper with the vote tabulations, but I fear that they will crush any group that attempts to advance this suspicion. Evidence would need to be irrefutable and shared with all media outlets simultaneously. I agree with that, sir. And as I said to you, we're still digging, and if we find it, we gonna go all in on it without a doubt. I apologize for being so slow on reading you all's comments, but I definitely wanted to get you in there. I wanted to get you in there and respect you and respect your time. Thanks for chiming in. Um, there's nothing wrong with unity. We've been talking about this before the election. We specifically hit it after the election. We went in really deep with it during Kwanzaa. We said, we acknowledge, we understand the only way to come out of this, the only way we're going to come out of this thing okay, is if we come together. So yes, I don't see why folk don't come in and come together with a Roland Martin. I'm sorry, with whomever, and make that push to expand their umbrella and the tent to be more inclusive of various voices. That's never been an issue here, and I hope that they do the same. Whatever outlet they choose to utilize. Um, I want to pivot for a half a second because this was very important. I want to go to Brother Barry because this is something he brought up during his show, and it speaks also to a degree about the unity. Brother Barry, you brought up Sister Colette and her being the first person to refuse to give up her seat during the uh, bus boycott down there in Montgomery, but she wasn't picked up because of it. I found out about her when I was stationed in Montgomery at Maxwell Air Force Base. There was actually an article about her and the others that came after her, but all before Rosa Parks, because it was the 50th anniversary of their resistance things.
Mhm.
I found out then that the sister was unmarried, became pregnant, and to your point, the colorism kicked in, with the fact that she was darker skinned versus being lighter skinned like Sister Rosa. That was very disheartening to me, and that's another thing that in this season that we need to change. We don't need to be stuck on stupid and allow these isms to keep us separate from one another. This ain't the time. This is the time for us to have disagreements behind closed doors, but come out of those doors lockstep and in one in order for us to get anything done and anything accomplished. Because if not, there will always be space for those who want to keep us separate and down. I'm getting a lot of open air from somebody. Want to keep us down and out um, separate because there is that space. There's that daylight. There's that break. If we don't present ourselves as if we are a unified front, so we don't have time for that. Man. We don't have time.
Yeah, I think that's why no. That's why I'm not for the fraternity sorority joining from 40-year-old people
Mm,
because I don't think that we need to create more divisions.
mm,
I know the Divine Nine gets talked about and praised a lot in our community, but what are the assignment of each fraternity and sorority to tackle the problems of African Americans throughout the country and the diaspora? They have none.
mm.
And so we don't need more divisive things. And it's also set on colorism. If you can look and classism, if you can look at who's in what fraternity and sorority, but these are other examples of us adopting Eurocentric ideologies and principles and then trying to co-opt them and say they are our own because you put a black face on it, you throw a little jazz behind it, and you say, see, look at that, we pimped it out. No.
You
Um,
throw a dance move or two, a
yeah.
secret handshake, and it's all us, right?
And it's us. See, we took it over. And I'm saying that to not like make them the focal point, but to your point of saying we have to learn what collectivism is, and we also have to understand that colorism impacts us. As I was stating today, my sister Khalees is a beautiful dark skinned sister, but I will tell you, Khalees didn't get the support and attraction that she should have because of her skin complexion. If she was light, bright, and dang near white, they would have been parading her all throughout the state of Minnesota on their shoulders. And so that is a problem in our community. We still struggle with colorism. And we have to tackle that. And we have to be honest about it. And we have to deal with some of those demons because what we're learning through Trump, and I heard Rodney call them the maggots. I like that by the way. Um,
Yeah, me too. I think I'm going to start using that
he
myself.
slid, he slid that in all calm and cool.
Right, he did. He slid that in real smooth.
Maggots. But I think they are looking at our weaknesses that we haven't checked, and they're using those weaknesses against us. And not only just Black America, but just America at a whole. And so, in order for us to get strong, we have to. I'm not going to discriminate against a person because they're light skinned either. If you like with a good idea and or biracial or whatever you call yourself, man, a good idea is a good idea. I'm taking the ideas from human beings that got similar, we got similar goals. Let's go. And I think that that's what we have to do, but we have to untrain our mind. And um, I think that division has to stop based off of colorism, man. I do.
Well, it's not doing any of us any good. So, sticking to it is just a foolish errand, to be honest with you. But sometimes we have been extremely foolish for way too daggone long. Um, we had a discussion. We being again Rodney and I about preparations for maybe the days to come. And one of the things that he said to me, and I'm not speaking to him like he ain't on because he's on, but one of the things Rodney said to me was, "Hey, what are your thoughts about getting the filtration straws?" And I was like, "Oh, you know what, Rodney? I do need to get a couple of those, regardless of what happens during these dark days. I just need some of those in general. I stocked up on some food that is transportable. I stocked up on other things, but I did not think about the water source. Maybe because I'm a fat boy and I like juice and sodas too much, but maybe it was just really one of those things on my list that it just did not register with me whatsoever. So thank you, Rodney, for hipping me to that because it was definitely something that I did not think about at all. And depending on the environment or your circumstance in the moment, you very well may need that. You're not always going to be able to stop to get bottled water. There may not be any bottled water available. Uh, you may have to make a move and get low, and trying to get some water, which is essential to all of us, is is not always easy. I'm sorry. Let me get to the sister's comment. Nicole came back and she says, "For all of us, look at our inner weakness and strengthen up. We always need to strive to do better. I think that this is one of the big difference between us and them." I can see that. I can definitely see that.
100%. You can
Bad
look at
mentality. Sorry,
you
go
can
ahead.
look at that with Elon and all the babies he's having. Like this is if you go watch those Netflix documentaries about fertility clinics and the controversy with the doctor in Indiana, as well as the white man inside of New Zealand, both of them said that, or Australia, I believe, both of them said that they were trying to increase the fragility of whiteness because they saw it as a weakness. And she's right. We have to take the things where we are weak at and we have to think about it. But that's a sign of white supremacy because that's the ideology and that's going over people's heads. I'm watching people not even catch it. They're just talking about the baby mamas, and I'm like, no, that shows you his ideology. You guys aren't watching his ideology. He's telling you through his actions how he is, how he moves, and what have you. And we have to learn that exact same thing. I'm not saying that we need to go out and have a bunch of babies, but we do need to strengthen the relationships between black men and black women and black children. Make sure that we're taking care of our elders, making sure that we have an understanding for who we are as a people, where we need to go, and staying in solidarity. Because our biggest weakness across the diaspora is solidarity. The African, the black man, the black Asiatic, whatever you want to call us, we do not stand in solidarity, and people know this.
I, the leader, the brother in Africa, the young brother. Oh, what country is he leading? It begins
Burkina
with a
Faso.
Yep. It begins with a B. Man, woo! That brother right there. We need to protect. We need to put a cloak around him. We need to put some shields around that brother. That cat has a very bright future. God willing, and the creek don't rise. He lives to execute it. Go ahead, Rodney. What was the on about?
You know, I think his days are numbered.
Yeah, sadly.
And I think a reality is that uh, the Berlin Conference has been called in the 21st century, and the African scramble is on.
Mhm.
And unless Africa, nah, I don't even say unless. I think Africa is not quite a foregone conclusion, but Africa is in trouble. Africa has allowed the Chinese to come in and get a foothold. I remember when brothers was telling me how great that was for Africa. I never saw it as being great for Africa. And then Russia came in, and brothers was talking about how great it was because America was so bad. Now we have uh, Russia, and now America has to compete for Africa against Russia. Well, the new axis of evil, during World War II, you had Italy, Japan, and Germany. Well, the new axis of evil, unless the American people rise up, as Malcolm might say, quick, fast, and in a hurry, is Russia, China, and America. and you could sprinkle in North Korea, but it's a vassal state to China, and you could sprinkle in Iran, which is a vassal state
To
to
Russia.
Russia. But the axis of evil, if the American people don't do more than what they're doing, and specifically if white people don't do more, and to Brother Barry's point, if black people don't get their ish together, is Africa is going to be divided into three parts. Um, the oh gosh, I forgot the name of the group just that quick, but Russia's Putin's private military has been in Africa and has been causing mischief in Africa. Um, so the Middle East is already being co-opted by Russia. They have planted the seeds of division for a long time. Brian Harris from uh, the Independent Black Book, uh, Independent Black Voters, often talks about, and Brother Barry has mentioned it often, had mentioned playing chess versus playing checkers. Well, they're not even just playing checkers compared to our chess. They're playing three-dimensional chess while we're still playing checkers. And I know the relationship that I'm working on here in Las Vegas with the African diaspora that reaches into LA and uh, reaches into Phoenix, into AZ. We need to start making those relationships, and we need to remove that hatchet from our hands with our African cousins. Because if we're going to fight, and we are going to fight, there will be a fight. There will be sectarian violence. And I predict that it will be no later than this summer, if not earlier. They're preparing in on multiple fronts. And I don't know what we're doing to get our stuff together, but we have to get our stuff together, and we have to get our stuff together with white people who are sympathetic to the cause. I'm not talking about the white people who have been impacted. We need to do it with them too, because we're all in the same boat. But I'm talking about white people who weren't impacted, who were sympathetic to the cause. We as black people are going to have to remove some of our barriers to entry with those white people who, in some cases, and I can tell you from my experience in Las Vegas, some of them I have to hold back because they're raring to go more than the brothers and sisters. So I'm just saying that this is, in spite of how bad it looks, and it's looking worse every day, that there's opportunities, and we're going to have to get into that checkers because this chess game is creating uh, too much attrition, and we simply can't, are not in a position where we can afford it.
Mm.
So the Africans have woken up and started kicking out the French. Ronnie, I believe you were referring to the Wagner Group. The Wagner Group are the next group of folks that they need to wake up and kick out. What the Wagner Group are those whom Ronnie was speaking of earlier, whom are Putin's private army. They need to, I believe, as we're talking about black unity here in America, they need to do the same thing on the continent, where they need to understand that they can fulfill all their needs amongst themselves and just negotiate with one another in good faith without those outside actors coming into play, whom are looking to cause chaos so that they continue to be splintered and apart. So
Mm.
that's why I say the young brother has a great future ahead of him. We just need to erect a whole bubble around that cat that's impenetrable by bullet, disease, so on and so forth. Hopefully that he'll live long enough to for his vision and his leadership to actually take hold and move the continent forward without a doubt.
Well,
Um,
I would say Gaddafi had all of those things, and you see what happened. And I've
yeah, they,
said
they
this.
trapped Obama to kill him.
Well, I've always said that he didn't. The U.S. killed him, but they did it for Chinese interests
Mm,
because what
mm,
Gaddafi was doing with uniting Africa to have a continental dollar, what that would have done to not only Americans but also the Chinese without them having to beg and borrow. I mean, the Chinese over there giving payday loans. And that's just what it boils down to. And you have a lot of African Americans are going over there who are investing in China and other places too. And they're also treating it like payday loans. So the continent is in trouble. And when Akon was talking about Akon City with these Chinese billionaires' money, that wasn't a good look. And people didn't understand, and folks still don't understand what colonization is like.
Hmm.
So the African has no friends, and we should have known when the Japanese started paying $90,000 if you're African to come over. They're trying to get in. They said that the Chinese are now supporting the idea of Africans having babies with Chinese women because they're trying to get further in. They're saying one-third of the children in West Africa, in between Liberia and Nigeria, are Chinese, are part Chinese now. That's not happening on accident. And so we have to really understand how the global politic thing works. And we have to understand everybody has a supremacy complex except the African, which is crazy. I think us and the South Americans are probably the only ones who really don't have uh, a complex, because I don't see the folks that's down in Mexico or the folks down there in Central and Southern Americas. I don't see them trying to go other places and take over. Folks are kind of content where they at and okay with their piece of land. They might fight amongst each other, but they're not going to other continents. But with that being said, I hope that the young brother makes success. But here's the thing too. Maybe this is just his one form of the leg of his race as a human being, and he might spark the change that may be needed throughout the continent. So bless that brother, and we have to keep eyes and definitely listen to what's going on and see what's going on with it. But shout out to him for sure.
Gotcha. And as I said, that was a little spike away from the conversation, but so yesterday in the Oval, there was a meeting between President Zelensky of Ukraine, President Trump of America, and Vice President Vance of America. This was supposed to be a conversation had about the war in Ukraine and the mineral rights deal that the U.S. wanted to sign with the Ukrainians. It boiled down to being a yelling match where the president of the United States of America told the president of Ukraine that he wasn't holding the cards necessary in order to negotiate. I've never seen anything like that before. Never heard anything like that before. He was not just stern with the president of Ukraine. He was very yeah, Nicole, kiss the ring, right?
He
Yeah,
was very thuggish.
yes, he was very thuggish. Nicole said kiss the ring. Yeah, kiss the ring, and you can substitute ring for ASS. Um, it,
That's what
it was
Zelensky should
crazy.
have told him.
Yeah, he should have. He should have. You're talking about, and to a man who's fighting to save his country and his people, and you're treating him like he was a adolescent, just talking about buying a toy off the shelf at the grocery store or at Kids or Toys R Us. Like this is real. These are real folks. Um, the assault on his leadership, the assault on his people. I can't imagine that weight. I don't want to think about that weight. This man is coming asking for our help. He needs our help clearly. And let's be clear with everybody. If we don't provide him with that help, if the Russians are able to take over Ukraine, what else are they going to want? Remember, we went through this a couple of years ago with Crimea. Remember that?
Mm-hmm.
What's going to happen next? What's going to happen next? Especially with someone as complicit as Donald Trump in the White House, who's willing to play nice to Putin.
Mm-hmm.
It was clear from
Zelensky.
Donald Trump's comments that he was not there to really work toward a ending of the war that would be beneficial to both the Ukrainians, the Russians, and the world. It was clear by his comments, his tone, that he had sided with the Russians, in my opinion, that he had sided with the Russians and he cared very little with the Ukrainians. Now, some folks, some talking heads said that Zelensky played into the hand of Vance and Trump, that he bucked up, he shouldn't have bucked up, blah blah blah. Others say that he played into the hands of the Europeans, and he stood up because he felt that the Europeans were united and ready to support him, regardless of what the Americans do. But let us be clear. Let us be clear. If they lose, if they're overrun, Poland, Austria, hell, it could even be Germany to be real, might be next. It might be Czech. Because remember,
Finland.
okay, Finland. Remember, Czech and Slovakia are now two different countries. It's Slovakia. Maybe they want to go to Slovakia next. But hell, if you go to Slovakia, you're right there at Czech and you're in Hungary.
Mm-hmm.
Remember, Hungary, the leadership in Hungary isn't that stable right now.
Mm-hmm.
So what happens next? You understand? This is a huge freaking game that this dude is playing. And I don't think he's seeing it at that level because he just wants to win favor with Putin. Which again goes back to his first term. What does Putin have on him?
Mm.
What does Putin have on him?
Maybe Putin doesn't have anything on it, and
So what do you think it is?
I'm not saying that he doesn't, but maybe this is just who this dude is, and this is who he's always been. And so maybe Putin does have something on him. Maybe he doesn't. But also maybe this is just who 45 is and always has been. I was always struck by what his first wife said about him having Mein Kampf at his bedside.
Mm-hmm.
And watching the moves that he's making, the words that he's using, it's right out of Mein Kampf.
Rodney,
It's the playbook.
these folks don't believe that fat meat is greasy.
Till you feed it to him.
They don't believe fat meat is greasy, brother. Like this ain't rocket science. What we seeing. This is a cabal of hate. I don't even like playing the game of what if. When you know, you ain't got to say you think when you know.
There you go.
They clearly went right over to Germany, and who they go sit with? The ultra right, the new version of Nazism. They went to Germany, and that's who they had a conversation with. Ooh, J.D. Vance. Where's J.D. Vance from? Appalachia? What's in Appalachia?
Supposedly.
Okay. The KKK? Neo-Nazis? Okay. What did Elon do? The Hail Hitler sign? Oh, no. That's not it. We got to play these games. It's to comfort white folks so that they don't have to say they have an issue that they must check, that they must do the work that they have not done the work on. This man has been trying to be an ambassador to Russia since the 80s. He's been an agent. He's been an agent. He's a traitor. Everything they've done since he's got in office has been treasonous. The question you have to ask is, how deep is the treason? Is it
Deep.
on the Supreme Court?
Deep.
Is it in the Republican Party?
Deep.
Is it in the Democratic Party? People are allowing things to take place and looking the other way, but they know they hear the banging on the door. The media is complicit. His show yesterday took place while Russian sponsored television was right there in the White House. Meanwhile, the American press and Reuters have been banned. People don't know that Zelensky was already agreed to the deal for the mineral rights. They already had that in place. This is Saddam Hussein 2.0. Hey, tell me you don't have weapons of mass destruction and we'll leave you alone. I don't have weapons of mass destruction. I'm going to bomb you. I'm going to create the argument so I can bomb you.
I still say that was us getting rid of old munitions that was sitting around that
No,
we didn't know work.
no. That was white supremacy still.
Okay.
And we got to take a look at what happened with this situation yesterday because they said you haven't said thanks. They counted 33 times sitting in the Oval Office that he said thank you. 33 times. How many more times? What was he supposed to say? Sir, bend over so I can kiss your ass for the whole world to see. Literally, at some point.
Yes, that's what he wanted.
But at some point, the American public, because this is what I do say when we talk about folks overseas. See, the consequences when you start playing with these people and you start going on vacation and your ass go missing. No, I'm serious because we do a lot of playing in this country. And when people get serious, because it's real consequences for their loved ones. But when your ass is the one on that plane and they got a bomb strapped and your ass ain't getting off, then you got to think about it. Yeah. Like this is kind of like that point where you start saying, no, ain't no excuse for the American people. We have to start calling this out. And I want to add to this. White folks are going to the Capitol protesting. I like the fact that we stood out there and we didn't shop at Target yesterday, but we need to protest too. We need to say that this ain't right. And I'm going to tell you, we need to do to them what he did to President Obama. We need to question his legitimacy, and we need to stay questioning his legitimacy. This is not sports. I'm going to say this one more time. This is not sports. Stop saying because the referees are part of the game, it's okay if you cheat. Politics is different. We have to call a spade, and we have to delegitimize everything that this guy is doing along with Elon Musk. Because if we don't, we are going to pay as a people. And Rodney said the axis of evil. I heard folks saying last night, we are no longer the leaders of the free world. Our status is gone. And now we don't even have Europeans. We're almost at a point because of this jackass where we won't even be allies to the Europeans or any other country. We're going to be on an island by ourselves without a chance and the know-how to defend ourselves.
Now that's real. That's really real, and that's a very huge threat because yes, we are mighty. Yes, we do have the world's strongest military. But if we are constantly hit by whomever or whatever, be it the cartels, be it China, be it hell, I mean, if the North Koreans are backed by the Chinese, obviously they can take South Korea and then they can push the fight to Japan, the PI. If they're then attacked by the Australians, then China would jump in, and then they can do a unified front, skip over the Pacific, and come to the West Coast. I mean, that was done during World War II. Most people don't know that the Japanese were effective in hitting the West Coast of America during World War II. Hell, they were actually effective hitting the East Coast. The Germans were effective in hitting the East Coast of America during World War II as well. Most people don't know that at all. But that is a real danger for us, especially when remember, we there's not a whole lot America produces anymore. So we need trade partners. We need partners in order to survive. Going back to the idea of white supremacy, remember that a lot of manufacturing jobs went overseas because they were helping to support the middle class white folks and middle class black folks. A lot of black folks were able to sustain themselves, provide for themselves, and fund the movement, the civil rights movement, through having these good paying jobs that did not require you to have a college education.
So now
Uh,
you understanding why he's doing what he's doing. If
right,
you stop it right there and you look at what he's attacking, the idea is to stop any movement that could fund his anybody that will be adversarial to him.
right.
That's what they're crippling. They're trying to make it to where no one could afford to support anyone else and that they have all of the dollars. You know what's funny? It's a name that I heard so much under Obama and up under Biden, but I haven't heard his name called not once during Trump, and that's George Soros. Did Soros die? Did Soros stop being the boogeyman that funded all of this stuff? Where's Soros at? Has anybody seen George Soros? Is he still cutting checks? Remember, he was the brain for everything. Where's he at? I'm just saying. And I'm not saying that to bash George Soros, but I want people to understand how much these people lie and how they don't care on who they lie on. Just like Lee, you asked, how can we get the truth out? I mean, the woman just stood up there and said, hey, well, we spent hundreds of millions of dollars on sending condoms to the people in the Middle East so they can create bombs. No
Oh
fact.
my God.
She didn't have to fact check it. She just said it. And then this idiot, a thieving wannabe president, he recited it. These folks don't have time for the truth. It's too
None.
time consuming for these assholes.
None. They don't want to hear facts. They don't want to see the research. They don't want to truly know what's going on. Again, this is to your point, brother Barry. It's all about feelings, and they are playing those algorithms, and they're playing people's emotions so well. Had a conversation just the other day about um, the condoms and all the millions and millions of dollars that we wasted on this thing and that thing. And I was like, what are you? I'm sorry. All the dead people that voted. Like, where do you get this information from? Look, this is not happening in mass. It may happen one, two people getting benefits that they were not eligible to get. Again, one, two. It depends on when the death certificate gets filed or comes to the department versus when the funds are cut off. That happens. It's just one of those things because all the systems don't talk to one another in a simultaneous manner. So that's going to happen. But when you're talking about thousands and thousands and tens of thousands, like boom. And again, yo, I've said this before. Maybe I didn't say it on the show. Maybe I have. I'm sorry. I say it so much. I don't remember all the time. But if you listen to this guy talk, he sounds like a adolescent having a conversation. Everything is about feelings. Everything is about they. Who are they? You are the chief executive. You should not talk about they. You should say, we know because of our research, this, that, and the third. Not, well, everyone knows it. Well, who the hell is everyone? And how does everybody know? Well, they said, well, who the hell are they? You are the they, dude. Be concrete in your statements, but he's not. Why? Because he's lying. He's lying. He lies so much that you can't even count the amount of lies because you would miss 10 of them while you were trying to figure out the one that he just said. Like, as you're researching the one, you're going to miss 10, 20 other ones. It's just freaking ridiculous. It's ridiculous. You talked about the German elections. I don't want to go Yes, I'm sorry. Nicole said nothing compared to corporate welfare, and you're absolutely right. So if Doge wants to save money, why don't we start by stopping the subsidies that we're paying to SpaceX and to Tesla? How about that? That those are billions of dollars that would go back in the American budget, but that's not going to happen because it benefits him. So the elections happen Sunday, Sunday, last Sunday, I believe, in Germany, and um, the far right did not win, but they did move into second as far as the country is concerned. It's a parliamentary country. The way that the chancellor selected the chancellor's winning party then gets to form a government with whatever party that he wants. So pretty much the in our system, the Democrats won. No, that's not true. The liberals won. The Democrats fell to third place. The Republicans are in second place. So now the liberals and the Democrats are going to form the government where the chancellor will be the head. But right behind them, obviously, are the Republicans, the far right, if you want to make it in American terms. Now, the good and bad thing about this is the far right was actually anticipated to take over the government, and that would have been just disastrous on so many levels. They did not win. But the sentiment is still very strong in the country about the same issues that we're dealing with here in America: lack of jobs, immigration, so on and so forth. If these cats lose the government the next go around, the question is going to be if the far right will actually prevail and be in charge of Germany during their next election. God help us all. God help us all, because you get that alignment, you get a energized Putin say that things don't go well at all for Zelensky, and emboldened China already is they're still pushing and prodding in the Pacific. We will be at World War III without a doubt. Barr, I believe that's the name of the chancellor now. He warned, no, Mers, I'm sorry, warns 5 minutes to midnight for Europe amid Trump tensions, and that is a very solid warning with the current state of American politics and American affairs. Sadly, we have lost our championship crown. We have lost our swag, if you will, on the world stage. We have lost our face. Now, hopefully, not everyone has lost faith in us, but we've definitely lost a lot of faith, especially after yesterday. That was horrible. I mean, Zelensky was asked to not even stay at the White House overnight, as he was asked to visit the White House. He was asked to remove himself from the White House, and was not allowed to stay there for the rest of his trip to Washington.
I'm glad he left.
Me
I'm
too.
uh, he there was nothing for him to gain.
Mhm.
He
Right.
showed a lot of courage. He came to the belly of the beast knowing 45. He did his political thing and he showed up. And then when they tried to, you know, they tried to corner him, he showed why his country is still in the war. 45 is jealous of him because people now associate leadership of the free world to Zelensky. And here's another piece to this discussion is 45 is going after America's former allies,
Mhm.
and he's forcing Europe to separate themselves from America.
Mhm.
And as he threatens Europe, and they're now pushing back, just like Macron grabbed that hand, pushed that hand down the other day. Not only are we losing our place, or not only have we lost our place as leader of the free world, we're seeing other powers rise up, and we're seeing other leaders rise up. And so this is not just something during this administration. But Lee, I don't think we have until 2 years or anything like that. World War III is coming before the year is out. I predicted on the show before that the world is going to be on fire and the United States is going to be on fire. Ukraine is what, number 5 or number 6 when it comes to wheat production. Russia is a wheat producer. If you look at Mexico and some South American countries on the amount of products that they send to America, that it would be very difficult for America to maintain the status quo without those trading partners. If Canada decides they don't want to send us timber anymore, if Japan decides they want to cut off the steel, we're not in. Biden was putting us in a position of strength, but maybe even with all of those things that sound so bad, I can tell you from our experience at the gathering last night, a looming and growing threat here in America, and I really don't like saying it, but it's what I'm seeing here, and I'd like to know what you all are seeing where you are, is the number of Black people who are falling for the fascist white
The okie doke.
supremacy tropes.
The okie
And
doke.
yes, and falling hard. We have been targeted at the gathering. And I was like, I guess that means we must be doing something right because, because they send their spies first, and I watched them, and then after they sent their spies, they started sending their disruptors, and it's causing me to go out of character because I have to shut them down. But it is causing harm at the same time because some people see it and it's like, well, are these Black men, Black women, do they have a point? Well, why are they not being given a voice? And what I tell them is this is a no fascist, non-white supremacy zone. And if you come with fascism, white supremacy, or Gish Gallop, you will be shut down. Some
Did
people
you
even
say Gish
come,
Gallop?
yes,
Jeez,
sir.
Rodney, it's too early in the morning for the words.
Some people even have the unmitigated goal to come to the gathering and going to tell us how to run it. We've been doing it for 18 and a half years
Mm.
and we're growing and we are diverse and we are strong and getting stronger. And the people in the gathering, we don't necessarily do activism at the gathering, but we may be catalysts for activism outside the gathering and bring people together so that they can do things away. And we're growing strong. And I think that's why we're under attack now. And that's sad because three-dimensional chess, they don't send the white people to disrupt us. They
That's it.
send the Black people
Right.
to disrupt us. And that hurts me. And it also hurts me that I have to swell up on them. Because as the facilitator of the gathering and the placeholder that Sam left, I have to protect his legacy. And what I maybe also what I'm saying is recognize that PragerU has a Black face representing it. The one of the Frederick Douglass organizations. Not only do they co-opt the name Frederick Douglass, but they have a bunch of shuck and jiving people with dark skin as the front because they just like how they have some rappers. They know how to chip away on the margins and get a few people and a few people and a few more. And then those people go in and get a few more. In Dr. Timothy Snyder's book, he talks about the need to strengthen our legacy institutions. So what we did at the gathering is, though I don't always agree, the NAACP is a legacy institution. One of the young ladies from the gathering said she would donate 5 memberships to the NAACP. Alex got a lifetime membership. I told him I would go ahead and get a lifetime membership. We have to shore up our institutions. We had a meeting with a representative from the Divine Nine for food insecurity summit,
Right.
and we basically put the, thank them for being there, but said we have an expectation for them to do more than they've been doing. This is our time to push the organizations that are our organizations to do more. This is our time to push the churches to do more. What did Jamal Bryan say?
He
Uh,
said, "Roll up on me."
and I am no longer a person who is quick to violence,
Right.
but they are warring against us, and we need to act as if we are in the war, because they sure are acting, and we're taking casualties. We cannot afford the attrition.
So my concern with that, right? And we have some sisters on that I can see. I'm pretty sure others are listening, watching, doing whatever they're doing later, right? My concern with that is as I talk to folk, but I'm specifically going to target black women, and I ask them, do you have a weapon in your home? And their response is, "Oh no, I would never do that. I have children." "Well, how old are your children?" "Oh, they're 20." Blah, blah. Okay, first they ain't babies. Okay. So I understand you have children, but you ain't got no babies. All right, so let's scratch that off the list. Well, I just and I that it's a million and one excuses. You know, I worry because there are a lot of them, and I don't mind taking whomever out to show them how to use their weapon system. I have no problems with that. I love shooting. I will go shooting whenever anyone wants to go shooting. But we have to come to the understanding that they are strapped. They don't have those same reservations as we. And if you want to really protect yourself and your family, you need to at least have or come to the field equally. You at least need to be able to provide and protect for yourself, regardless. You don't have to be exotic. You don't need an 81 mic in your house. That's a mortar, by the way, which you would never get in your home, but that's a different story for a different time. You don't need a Uzi in your home. You don't need 45 or 38, a judge. You don't need all those things, but you need something to make sure that I know, right? And that's why I said judge, right? But you need something to make sure that you and your family are taken care of. Nicole says this is a difficult subject for us, somewhat, but why? Why is it difficult? Again, you don't bring a hammer to a knife fight. You don't bring a knife to a gunfight. You have to be cognizant of the world around you. That doesn't mean you have to turn into Ram Bro or Ram Sis, but you need to be prepared regardless of the situation. I'm sorry, go ahead, Thomas.
But I also think you have to put yourself in situations where you're not in danger. And I say it all the time. Black women are in places surrounded by more white folks than black men are, certainly. And I think a part of that is this idea of the illusion of inclusion.
Hmm.
And then the other side of it is if you really thought about threats and death in the way that our parents did, the way our grandparents and great grandparents did, then we wouldn't be having these relationship issues neither, because we would understood that the man and the woman is for each other's protection. But when you don't think about security on that level and you're not having dialogue from that space, then it shows up differently. So then you have that aspect. There's the other aspect that if we had our own
And the
shooting,
growth.
true, but if we had our own shooting ranges, I think sisters would probably feel more comfortable to shoot because it'll be a cultural thing. We're kind of like at this point, sort of like well, we have to show our hands, when we're walking through the store, because guns have been criminalized or demonized in our community to say if you're black and you have a gun that you're somehow already going to be a criminal. And so that's why I feel like it's a shift in mindset, but it's also a shift in other cultural things too, because women shouldn't have to always protect themselves. We shouldn't have as many women sleeping in houses with children by themselves. Like, we have to really shift that thinking because it's being forced upon us. And if Rodney's predictions come true, then, even if she got a gun, one mom, and three kids, how's she gonna protect the house from 10 white men that's ganged up? She ain't. If you in a neighborhood full of white folks and they need what you got in your house, how you gonna protect that? You can't. So a lot of it is just, we have to reshift our thinking, and then we have to start really teaming up. And it doesn't have to be just on an intimate level. We're just talking survival. How do you survive and how do you thrive? And I feel like that's a part of this conversation that has to be a reshifting of our minds. Um, and that's just my 2 cents. I don't want to, because I've had this conversation with Khalees. Let me tell y'all something funny that happened. So I called Khalees the other day. I texted her and I said, "Hey, I know everybody's not shopping on Friday, but I suggest getting everything on Wednesday because Thursdays the stores will be packed. And Thursday, I forgot the name of the German holiday. It was a German battle. And I was like, hey, you don't want to be out on Thursdays because usually when white supremacists, when they attack, they use these German holidays to do violent things." And her response to me was, well, I'm prayed up and the Lord got my back.
Oh wow.
And I don't operate in fear. And I said, that's crazy because I've been shot twice, scared of a person on this planet. And I don't operate in fear, but I do operate from a place of knowing. But I also thought for a second, I said, oh, I won't send your ass another thing. And when you need my help or my protection, you won't get it. And I had to re-walk it back in my own head because I'm like, no, that's part of the problem. But like, our people believe these things like, I'm gonna just pray about it. And if it's meant to happen, it'll happen. And it's like, no, you have to be aware of your surroundings. You have to be able to operate in safety. And it's not about fear. See, that's the thing. Even a hunter, even the coldest killers are still operating from a place of discipline where they minimize risk. A lot of our people don't minimize risk.
So look at
Rodney, what
what
they say? What they
go
say,
ahead.
Rodney? Prayer without work is dead.
There
So,
you go. Hey, and God was in control during slavery. He was in control
thank you.
during the African scramble. He was in control during the Jewish Holocaust. So God, yes, God is in control. Got it. But He gave us free will, and we can mess up some free will. But I wanted to read what what Nicole wrote in the chat, and I thought this was an honest statement and where a lot of people are. She says, we are considering it. This is talking about purchasing a weapon. And I realize it is probably a different issue for blacks versus whites because we have felt safer for many years.
Correct.
So many children deaths, accidents with guns. That's the fear when you have a family. As careful as you try to be, uh, accidents can happen, and that is true.
Accidents can
All,
happen.
all all of that is true. But to Brother Barry's point, you mitigate it as much as possible. There are gun safes that they can use a key, they can use your fingerprints, they can use numbers, right? The gun will just, if it's a handgun, will just pop out. We have technology that can mitigate those things. But I think what
You don't
Brother
load
Barry
it.
was talking
You
is
don't load it. Hold on, Rodney. Hold on, Rodney. You don't load it. You take the firing pin out. There's a number of things that you can do
though I'm not
that if you
suggesting
are
I'm not suggesting
hold
you
on,
need
hold
to
on, hold on, hold on,
do
hold
that.
on, hold on, hold on. If you are proficient, you can do these things. If you are not, going to Rodney's point, if you are not, then yes, you do those things that he was talking about. There are biometric safes that you can use. There are keyed ones. There are cold ones. I have
Don't say what you have.
one of mine is that It's definitely coded. One of mine is definitely coded. One of mine is definitely coded, and we'll stay there. You know what I'm saying? But there are a number of ways to mitigate that situation as best you can.
So I
But
want to
that
go
goes
back
to the
to
point Brother Barry was making. That, hold up, I'm gonna stop after this, but that goes to the point Brother Barry was making. When God's in control, God's in control. Go ahead, Brother Rodney.
Brother Barry was one of his points was it's the mindset. And this is the downside of people who have been Democrats and liberals, is they have been browbeat on how bad guns are, that they have to have a mind reset. And it's difficult to do it. It's slow. They're seeing the need, and I understand their hesitancy. But I also tell them that unfortunately we don't have the luxury of that right now, because something happened this week that is typical for authoritarian regimes. And that's once they fire, once they co-opt the military, the very next step is to go after the guns.
Ammunition.
And 45 went after the guns this week. It
Mm.
was the first foray. Didn't hear a peep from the NRA,
Mm-mm.
right? But that's the first foray. Because, and I'm saying that as Lee earlier talked about, stocking up on food, stocking up on medicine, getting your batteries, getting your solar powered radios and phone chargers and things like that. Going getting your MREs or your barreled food that can last for 25 years, getting that straw. And those things are all good, and you need to do those post haste. But it is better to have the weapon in war and not need it than need it and not have it, knowing that those who declared war on you, not only do they have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 10, 20, 30, but they also have thousands of rounds of ammunition. And suppose we wait until what I'm saying, I'm predicting is going to happen. Suppose we wait until then. There's no guarantee that when you go to make that purchase, that they haven't turned off your credit card for certain purchases.
Mm-hmm.
There is no guarantee that the store, the gun store, which is typically owned by white people and oftentimes maggots or at least conservatives, there's no guarantee that they're going to sell it to you. So here we are in a war,
Or
a
it's
real
available.
war, and we're saying we're going to wait until the bullets come at us before we decide to go get what fires the bullets and the bullets, period. That is a recipe to lose, to die. And there, mark my words, there will be sectarian violence in America either this summer, if not before. Because now that he's co opted the military, now that he has fired the leaders of the military, and it's not just at the top, he's burrowing his way into the military. Now he's taken over the ATF. I asked a question last night. I said, suppose the courts compel him to do things that he refuses to do, or compel him to stop doing things that he's doing, and he ignore the courts. What is the recourse?
There is none because he has the Supreme Court in his pocket as well. Hold on. Alan chimed in as well. Alan said, I think we're getting close. Now it's the grandchildren we have to keep safe. You are right. That is true. I hadn't thought of it that way. And, the sad part is we're getting closer and closer. And we don't know. Let's stop there. Pause, time out. We don't know. And it's better to be prepared to need not have than to have and not need versus need not have. It's much better to be in that situation. Because
So I
again,
say you
to
say we
Rodney's
don't
point,
know, brother. I hear you say we don't know, but I'm gonna go back to what Brother Barry said earlier. There is a trend, there is a trajectory.
Mhm.
And though nobody knows anything absolute until it happens,
Correct.
we do know
It
by
still
the
has. Correct.
trend and by the trajectory, because everything else that we said was going to happen has happened. And so there's no reason to believe that what we're saying next, going by history, the trend and the trajectory, look it up. After they get the military, they go after the guns. And after they go after the guns, that's when they go into communities, and that's when the atrocities happen,
Hmm.
because they don't have to worry. That's when Eric Prince can send his people into your neighborhood, into your house, your school, saying he's looking for illegals, but they're not illegals. They're people that look like you and me. Or
Hmm.
maybe they're even people who look like Nicole because she's considered a sympathizer. These things, from a historical narrative, there is a clear line that draws what's coming next. And one of our issues is we have denied those lines. We have denied those trends, which has helped put us in the position of weakness where we are. I sympathize with the people who have grandchildren. I have them. But once again, there are we have means to mitigate those issues, and we need to exercise those means. If Lee said, and Brother Barry talked about partnering up, well, if that's not your strength, who do you know who has that as a strength? Who do you know that has food, that or a facility that you can store food? You can store food together. What I'm trying to say is we need to get out of our peacetime mindset that we've had the luxury in America and get into a war footing, because the war has started. It's not the war is coming. The war has started.
And Rodney, I was thinking about that today when I was watching, and yesterday when I was watching people's response to the boycotting. And I said, this is a clear example with my background and being from the streets. There's people who don't know what it's like when it's what we call funk season. When it's funk season, you don't go party, you don't go hang out, you ain't out spending your money recklessly. You gotta have bullets, you gotta have guns, and you gotta have bail money. And you go everywhere in a specific way, and it's a mindset. It's a total change. And you watch black folks reject it because folks are still in that mindset of, I just want to take my vacation. I just want to be an empty nester. I have an illusion of inclusion. And what I'm saying to all Americans, Rodney is telling you exactly what's going on here. And these folks aren't playing. I'll say it again. Trump represents the Nazis. Elon represents apartheid. JD Vance represents the KKK. The little Indian guy represents the caste system. We're talking about the we're talking about the cabal of racism and white supremacy across the scope, and they are bringing this right home to the U.S. of A. Elon is so much like, in my mind, like Hitler and the Nazis because of the technology piece. And what he wants to do with his technology, he wants to embed that into the heart of the American economic system, intelligence system, and defense. And once they hack into it, there'll be no way to get it out because it is an AI system that has a mind of its own. And I'm pretty sure that they are eliminating the people that could figure it out as we speak. This is an assault on the American public. This is an assault on the American government. This is an assault on the American safety. And we have to take it that way. And you have to do whatever you can do to change your mindset. And that's just the ugly truth. And this is why I'll say it again. We're talking about they kicked out Reuters and the American press, and the Russian press has a free reign to come into the White House and sit there and film. That's telling you your press corps ain't shit.
Did you
So
see? Did you see they filed a petition? The Russian government filed a petition to be able to start up direct flights from the U.S. to Russia.
because Lee, if I own your president, I own you.
Right. Look. Rodney was like, man, yes, crazy, right? Because what's on the plane that comes over? Let's say the plane is chartered and given to the FAA here in America as a plane full of passengers. But that plane, when it comes over, is full of the Wagner Group. And it's constantly bringing Wagner Group people over and over and over and over and over again and just planting them in the U.S. as visitors. And then they go on the order to attack. And what happens? Get going back to what we were talking about just a few moments ago. So they go on the attack. It's a Red Dawn situation, like the movie, but instead of the military coming directly with military aircraft personnel, they're dressed up as civilians. And like you said, once you own the president, you own me, right? So now they're getting through TSA, they're getting through customs because they're Russian. Putin said they were good to go, so they're good to go. Don't check them that thorough.
But the
Obviously, they're not being checked when they leave the country. So now they're coming over with all kinds of weaponry in their carry-ons, their checked-on bags, so on and so forth. They ready to go. What are we ready to do?
but Americans have to stand up.
Crazy, man.
The sad truth is that we're conditioned to act like we are helpless, but we are not helpless. You can't legitimize this presidency. You have to delegitimize
Yeah.
the idea that we play with it like it's legit is the problem. The mindset starts with the wording, the verbiage. If your verbiage is like it may be, then you ain't gonna do anything because maybe means wait and see. It's the yellow light. You got to get in the red light, green light. Can't have no yellows. And our problem is our verbiage across the board. And that's where the media has gotten us the verbiage. They sold us this guy. And if I can indulge just 2 minutes, Lee, we're going to have to take a mindset that when this is done, this media cannot stand the way that it is. It has to be erased. You have to get rid of the corporate moguls that own the media and give it back to the people. You're going to have to put things in place that you can't be a billionaire in this country. You're going to have to pay your taxes. Those are the
Oh,
things
you
that
can be a billionaire. You
no,
still
no,
got to
no,
pay
no,
taxes.
no, 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 brother. You can't be a billionaire because if you paid your fair share of taxes, you wouldn't be,
Mm.
especially if monopoly laws were enforced. We have to really get to that point. And that's the part that is hard for Americans because everybody wants to be a billionaire. Everybody wants to have their monopoly, right? Because they gave us the game Monopoly to play. They've been conditioning us the entire time. You can own Boardwalk and Park Place too. And you can charge that exorbitant amount of rent if people land on your shit, right? It's just a part of
Right.
the game. But we have to condition the mind that once we get him out of office, things cannot go back to normal. We have to rewrite that constitution to be modernized to fit the American populace of today. And the Supreme Court has to have term limits. We have to learn
Mm. Agree with
mistakes.
that.
We have to learn from our mistakes. And that's what's going to be hard for us because the people who are in power, even if they're against him, they still want to hold on to their power. So are they willing to let the rest of us suffer while they stay in power?
Okay. 7 minutes left in the show. I want to read Nicole's last couple of comments, then we'll transition to saying our last few comments before we get out. She says that I totally get the white supremacy and the threat, but the reality of war is where I guess the reality hasn't set in. But I'm getting there. It's hard.
Oh,
It's
that's
disgusting.
Alan. That's Brother Alan.
It's such an No, no, no. That's Nicole writing at Alan's computer.
Oh,
I
my
learned
bad.
from last time.
Okay. Oh,
um, and then when you were talking about the billionaires and stuff, she says that it's such an enormous amount of money. We are used to hearing such big numbers; they lose meaning. And then to my comment about it was her, not him. She goes, "LOL." So yeah, I learned last. I got you, sister. I learned last time. I'm a quick learner now. I'm paying attention. Appreciate you. And with that, we have 6 minutes left, and we'll wrap. We'll wrap the show. So, final thoughts. Start this going around. Again, we are not even 60 days in, and this is what we're dealing with. I can only imagine, though my heart is heavy with that imagination, what this thing is going to look like 100 days in, 8 months in, the first year and a half, so on and so forth.
oh, Lee pausing up on us.
I was wondering if it was me.
No, that's that Atlanta. That's that Atlanta Wi-Fi on.
Rodney, what you got? Did he not hear me?
Now
Yeah.
we can hear you. Um, this past Sunday, we recognized officially the 10th anniversary of Sam Smith's passing at the West Las Vegas
Oh
Art
wow.
Center. Big, big shout out to the Art Center for hosting us. Thank you to all of the people who came out, especially to his children. Uh, Sam, Marshall came out, his son and his daughter Asada came out. A big shout out to them for supporting us in continuing his legacy. And today marks the 3-year anniversary of the gathering moving to its spot at WSO from our home spot of the West Side Bistro. Big shout out to the folks at WSO for opening up their facility. And we were there last night from 5 o'clock, and some of us didn't leave until 2 o'clock this morning, hence me being late for the show. So thank you to the facility. And I
Woo.
do ask everybody to take the things that we are saying and look back at the things that we have said that has come true, and then seriously consider the things that we are saying are yet to come.
Mm, Facts.
Brother Barry?
I would just say, and we're approaching the 5-year anniversary of the death of George Floyd, and we're looking to do a town hall
Mm.
discussion, 2-day town hall discussion in the state of Minnesota to talk about the impact afterwards, the amount of dollars that came in due to his death, and how did it not help the community, and do an examination of what we need to do next. The problem with us is that we have to take things, reconstruct, and talk about what went wrong. And then if we got to name names, name names. We can't allow things to continue to happen while we look the other way. It's like the person farting in the elevator and everybody acting like we don't hear it. We hear it, we smell it, we know it's bad, but we need to acknowledge that, hey, it was the dude right there in the red jacket. He was the one that passed gas back there, that nasty mofo. So that's what we have to do, and we have to get it serious, but we are going to do that this upcoming May. I'm going to lead the charge. I'll let you guys know about that. We might actually try to live stream 2 days of it because we feel like there's so much that's taking place and the community is almost not being heard again.
Sister Rashi, we miss you. It's never the same without you, but we held it down without you being here. Family, thank you all for listening live and view. The hell, not listening anymore, right? They see us now. Thank you all for joining us this morning. As you see us first thing in the day one morning on a Saturday, but We appreciate your time. Thank you all for putting up with us yet again this week. Until next week, family. If no one's told you yet, we love you. Ain't a damn thing you can do about it. Peace.